Mr. Chair, members of the committee, when I call your name, please respond. Walter Bouchard.
This is Taylor Campbell Mosley as proxy for Walter Bouchard.
Thank you. Shane Kiso.
Present.
Thank you. Cesar Rodriguez.
Present.
Thank you. Chelsea Fenton.
Present.
Thank you. Beverly Janowski.
Present.
Thank you. Pamela Nicola.
Present.
Thank you. Tom Ekren. Kim Anderson.
Present.
Thank you. Robert Von den Knocker.
Present.
Thank you. Kenya Lugo Wait.
Present.
Thank you. Anita Lee. Salvador Portillo. Dan Cisco. Hondo Judd.
Present.
Thank you. Megan Sheldon. Mark Ortiz.
Present.
Thank you. Spencer Camps. Rick Williams.
Here.
Thank you. Kim Butler. Thank you. Nicole Clements. Michael Baez.
Present.
Thank you. Jennifer Peterson.
Present.
Thank you. Katrina Gerster.
Present.
Thank you. Anu Jane.
Present.
Thank you. Janet Kozinski. Ben Davis. Zachary Harbin. Justin Suryanata.
Present.
Thank you. Brody Lynn.
Present.
Thank you. Christina Hopez. Aaron Daughtery. Arden Holloway. Susie Stevens.
Present.
Thank you. Greg Arrington. Did I miss anyone?
Tom Ekren, ASC is present.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Christina Hoppus is also here from the city of Tempe.
Thank you, Christina.
A quorum is now present. Good afternoon, members of the MAG Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee. This meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak form. MAG staff can assist with any questions you may have. If you parked in the garage, a validation stamp is available on the counter. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for the ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. Our next item is called to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. I have received no requests to speak for the call to the audience. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Mr. Chair, no written comments were received.
Our next item is approval of the March 26, 2026 meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have questions? Hearing none, prior to approval of the meeting minutes, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I have received no requests to speak for this agenda item. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for this item?
Mr. Chair, no written comments were received.
Is there a motion to approve agenda item 3?
Justin
Robert-
Suryanata, motion to approve. Robert Vandenacker, City of Buckeye, second.
We have a motion from Justin and a second from Robert. A roll call vote will be taken at this time by Lisa Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Taylor Campbell Mosley.
Aye.
Thank you. Shane Kiesel.
Yes.
Thank you. Cesar Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. Chelsea Fenton.
Aye.
Thank you. Beverly Chanowski.
Aye.
Thank you. Pamela Nicola.
Aye.
Thank you. Tom Ekron.
Aye.
Thank you. Kim Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Robert Vandenacker.
Aye.
Thank you. Kenya Lugo Wait.
Aye.
Thank you. Salvador, excuse me, Hondo Judd.
Aye.
Thank you. Megan Sheldon.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Ortiz.
Aye.
Thank you. Spencer Camps. Rick Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Kim Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Nicole Clements. Michael Baez.
Aye.
Thank you. Jennifer Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you. Katrina Gerster.
Aye.
Thank you. Anu Jane.
Aye.
Thank you. Janet Kozinski. Ryan Templeton. Justin Suryanata.
Aye.
Thank you. Brody Lynn.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Thank you. Christina Hoppes.
Aye.
Thank you. Aaron Doherty. Arden Holloway.
Aye.
Thank you. Susie Stevens. Gregory Arrington. Did I miss anyone? Mr. Chair, we have a unanimous vote.
Major update to the inventory of unpaved roads in the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Anna Taft, Maricopa Association of Governments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. So today I will be presenting on the major update to the inventory of unpaved roads in the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. To get started, I'll be providing some background on why this inventory is necessary and important. So back on May 23rd, 2007, the MAG Regional Council approved additional items for the suggested list of measures to reduce PM10 for the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. One of these measures was that MAG would develop an unpaved roads inventory for the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. The intended use of the inventory was to measure progress in eliminating unpaved roads, as tracking this can result in emission reduction credits. While this is not mandated by the Regional Council, the unpaved road inventory for the West Pinal County PM10 non-attainment area holds equal importance, and the update for this area is currently underway. So moving into why this inventory is important, there are two main reasons. The first is ensuring an accurate conformity budget, and the second is to provide a tracking tool for emission reductions. So in this slide, we're going to be looking a little bit closer at the conformity budget. To maintain an accurate conformity budget, we must take a look at the emissions being generated within the associated region. And for the PM10 conformity budget, this consists of 4 emission categories as represented in the diagram. First one would be on-road emissions coming from vehicle exhaust, tire wear, and brake wear. The second category is reentrain dust from vehicles traveling on unpaved roads. Category 3 is reentrainment of dust from vehicles traveling on unpaved roads. And then the fourth category is road construction dust, Now, the one that we want to focus on a little bit more for today is going to be item number 3, and that's the reentrainment of dust from unpaved roads for vehicles traveling on unpaved roads. This is important because unpaved roads are the largest source of PM10 emissions in the non-attainment area, and these emissions are directly tied into maintaining an accurate conformity budget. So while discussing the conformity budget, I figured it would be a good idea to provide a visual to help you understand what our current conformity budget looks like. There are two conformity budgets at play currently in Maricopa County's PM10 non-attainment area. There's the 2006 standard, which is 59.7 metric tons per day, and then 2012 standard, which is listed as 54.9 metric tons per day. As you can see in the graph, emissions are rising over time as we're growing as a region, and this is due to an increase in vehicle miles traveled. One way to offset the increase in PM10 emissions from increased travel is to pave or stabilize unpaved roads, which leads me to my next point, which is tracking emission reductions. So the large importance of this is that tracking emission reductions is to help MAG have a scope on whether or not unpaved roads have increased or decreased over time. So being able to quantify the number of unpaved roads that have been eliminated or stabilized can help us update our emission inventory and then see if any emission reductions are available. Some things to consider when tracking emission reductions include determining the type of control measure that's being used. So that could be examples such as gravel, asphalt millings, chemical suppressants, water. We also like to look at how frequently it's being used. That also helps tie into its efficiency. So if it's being used correctly, then the efficiency percentage can be utilized. So for example, emissions from unpaved roads utilizing a stabilization measure generally provide a PM10 control efficiency of about 50% when applied regularly. Regularly is the key word there. So if it's not, it could be less. Whereas paving will result in 100% control efficiency. And then the third thing is the third item listed up on there is that this tracking can ultimately lead to emission reduction credits, which as of 2023, the total cumulative PM10 emission reduction credits for these projects is estimated to be 20,319 pounds per day. Now moving into the purpose of the inventory. So the purpose was to capture the statuses of unpaved roads through calendar year 2025 for the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area to help establish a new baseline. The last baseline was completed in 2011 with periodic updates being completed over time and the last one being completed in 2022. Now, given the complexity of unpaved road inventories, the creation of this new baseline involved an evaluation of the existing 2022 unpaved road inventory, not simply just an update from 2022 to 25. So everything included in the inventory was evaluated. With the ultimate purpose being to reach a new baseline, there were multiple factors that needed to be considered to ensure accuracy, and with that came the three primary goals as demonstrated in the diagram to the right. The first goal involved reviewing if roadways had been paved or if they still remained unpaved. And if they were still documented to be unpaved, then it was reviewed to determine if any actions were taken to reduce emissions, such as stabilization. Additionally, each unpaved road was reviewed to identify if it was part of an excluded category class, such as driveways, alleys, canal roads, or etc. And we'll discuss that more in a future slide. The second item we looked at was road classification, so determining if the road was a public or a private roadway. And then the last item evaluated was to determine updated average speed values for public and private unpaved roads. This was completed with the help of analysts from the Transportation Division, which we will discuss in a future slide as well. And then still to be evaluated, we'll be looking for ways to update the average daily traffic rates on unpaved roads, and average daily traffic rates will be referred to as ADT moving forward. Now in this picture, this is a screenshot of the 2022 inventory. So this is what it looked like once the 2022 inventory was completed. It's a little bit difficult to see from here, but if you can see the orange outline, that depicts the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment boundary. And then all of the colors located within that boundary represent different road types. So the description of that is listed over to the left. And then the two key things to look at here are that the red lines represent the private unpaved roads, and then blue represents public unpaved roads. The other items listed within that, within this map include canal roads, alleys, driveways, farm roads, and an assortment of other types of roads as well. Now moving on to the timeline of this project to give you an idea of the pace of it. Starting in October 2025, we began the initial evaluation by compiling all updates that we had from the 2022 inventory and any other previous data that was recorded. Moving on into November 2025 through February 2026, we began the segment review, which is where we reviewed approximately 14,500 segments for accuracy. Moving into January 2026, we looked at new roads that potentially needed to be accounted for in the inventory using connected vehicle data, which we will describe later. And then in February through March 2026, we began the in-person visits of any segments that were flagged for further review. Moving into February 2026, we began the speed analysis where we evaluated speed data to average new unpaved road speeds. And then finally, as of this month, April 2026, with help from our GIS team, we have developed maps for each jurisdiction to review. Now, this screen here is just a snapshot of the prior inventory that was completed and the progress that was made. So this is the end of the 2022 inventory. As you can see in the slide, at the time this inventory was conducted, there were 324 miles of public unpaved roads, 946 miles of private unpaved roads, and 1,270 miles combined of public and private unpaved roads. Now, since 2009, that's a decrease in public roads of 289 miles, and the private category went down by 325 miles. Moving into the methods and challenges. So here we're going to review over the methods used to establish the new baseline, as well as any challenges that we face throughout. So for the methods used, we included reviewing existing roads and comparing it to available in-house aerial imagery. So that included our imagery that we had, Google Street View, Google Satellite View, Maricopa County Assessor's Maps, and the MCDOT Road Informational Tool, which is the Maricopa County Department of Transportation. And then any road that was not able to be confirmed at the time was flagged for further review, so that way we could observe it in the field. Some of the challenges that we faced, first one was just the sheer volume of segments that we had. There was 14,500 segments, and this was divided between me and a team of 2 others, so it took a little bit of time to sift through all of them. And then just to give you a little bit of background, one segment does not equal one road. So for instance, one road might be divided into several segments. Usually they were separated around intersections, but it might not have always been the case. And then the second item that we had a challenge with was determining public and private road determinations. So we were using a lot of existing inventory to determine that public side, but private, obviously we don't have access to everyone's inventory from the member agency, so it made it a little bit tricky to determine what was what. And then for stabilization, we were checking for the presence of pavement, gravel, millings, chemical suppressants, or anything else that indicated some type of a stabilization. And if there was stabilization, we would check to see if there was enough stabilization to actually be working as a stabilizer, or if it had deteriorated, rendering it no longer beneficial. Moving into driveways and private roads, we ultimately made the determination that if a parcel provided access, or if a road provided access to multiple parcels, we would consider that a private road. And if it was only providing access to one parcel, we would consider that a driveway. For out-of-date photography, this was sometimes the case. We would run into some out-of-date photography, or the resolution of the imagery would make it difficult to make a determination, which then resulted in in-field observations. And then to the right, there's a collection of photos. The top photo is a road that was flagged for review in the field, as we weren't able to determine it based on the aerial imagery that we had and the resources available. Even from this photo, it might be tricky to determine if there's any kind of stabilization measure applied or if it's an unpaved road. But if you look at the photo to the bottom left, that photo is the same road with a close-up showing that it does actually have a dust palliative applied to it. So this gives an example of the type of challenges that we were facing. And then the picture to the right also shows a road that at one time had gravel covering it, but at this point now in time, the gravel has diminished and it's mostly a bare road. Now moving into the results. So the box over to the left is just a summary again of that 2022 inventory. The box to the right is our updated results. So the results of this inventory are all preliminary as we're still waiting for member agency review, as that hasn't been conducted yet. And all of the numbers are rounded to the nearest whole number. So for public unpaved roads, we gathered that there were 123 miles. For private unpaved roads, 898 miles. And the combination of those two categories was 1,021 miles. Now, since 2022, there was a decrease of 201 miles in the public category and 48 miles in the private category. And just to give a little bit of information on the public versus private determination, public roads were ones that we identified in the inventory previously as public, as mentioned before, via member agency response, or we used the MCDOT road informational tool to determine if it was a county maintained road. Private roads were identified based on available information indicating that these were not being maintained by a public agency. For the analysis, overall, we have reduced the number of unpaved roads that exist either through reclassification into their respective correct categories or through elimination via paving. There was a large reduction in public unpaved roads, and that was largely due to the reclassification of roads in the Tonto National Forest region from public into OHV trails. That accounted for approximately 180 miles out of the 201 mile decrease. We also saw that out of all the categories included, there was 106 miles of stabilized roads. And then of all the excluded from inventory categories, there was 1,037 miles of those types of roads, which included alleys, OHV trails, canal roads, state trusts, driveways, trails, farm roads, and closed/restricted unpaved roads. And then for newly identified roads that we have added to the inventory, there were 26 miles. Now, to explain the exclusions, these were excluded from the total inventory of public and private. However, they were still identified in the overall map. And these included items that I've mentioned previously, such as what's listed on the screen, alleys, agricultural, which is also the same as farm roads, canal, easements, utility, those closed restricted roads, and then OHV trails. Now, these were considered to be not public or private because they're roads that are generally inaccessible by the public, with alleys really being the only exception to this. Moving on, this is the updated map now of the inventory for Maricopa's PM10 non-attainment area. As you can see in the upper right-hand region, that is the section of OHV trails that were converted from public roads, And so that was accounting for 180 of those miles out of the 201. And then off to the left is again that legend where you can view the different types of roads that are listed up there. And this is where we're going to transition into talking about connected vehicle data. And this is going to be referred to as CVD in the presentation. This is technology that became available as of 2 years ago and was instrumental in conducting further analysis, such as identifying new unpaved roads to add to the inventory and for the speed analysis conducted. Analysis of the connected vehicle data was conducted in collaboration with the data division within the transportation department here at MAG. And so what is it? This is data acquired from a third-party vendor. It's only present on passenger vehicles years 2014 or newer, and it's generated by about 5 to 7% of traffic, and that accounts for roughly 140,000 vehicles. The data is collected every 3 seconds. It's anonymous, privacy protected, and consent obtained, and it has high granularity and precise data provided on speed, position, and the heading direction of the vehicle. What it is not is collecting personal identification information. It's also not tracking the vehicle itself. And it's currently not usable for obtaining ADT data since the data points are collected every 3 seconds, and this makes it difficult to distinguish vehicles and the volume of traffic. The CVD data was usable for the mean speed data, however, as this will not change drastically based on the number of vehicle trips. The figure to the right is just a depiction of what that CVD data does look like and the amount of data points that can be obtained. Data points will also be referred to as waypoints in a future slide. Now moving on to the usage of the CVD data. This was the first way we utilized it, which was to identify new unpaved roads to add to our inventory that were previously not identified. So this is an overview of the process. First, we began by collecting the data from CVD, and it was further processed, again, with the help of the transportation team here at MAG. All speeds were included for this evaluation, with the exception that stationary vehicles were filtered out. And roads with waypoints of 50 or more were analyzed. Waypoints, again, meaning data points, and there were data points every 3 seconds. So any road with 50 or more of these data points were further analyzed. And then every potential new segment reviewed was against the inventory, the existing inventory, to see if it was currently in there, and then checked for applicability. Applicability meaning, for example, if the road was within a parking lot or an existing business, then these were not included to be created as a new road. And again, in total, there were 26 miles of new unpaved roads that were added to the inventory. Moving into the second usage of the CVD data we were utilizing it to determine mean speeds. So this is again another walkthrough of that process. We began by sampling a week from March 8th, 2025 through March 14th, 2025, as this was identified as a high traffic week. Analysis was conducted only for public and private unpaved roads. And if you remember from before, I mentioned there were 14,500 segments. About 6,600 of those were actually private and public roads, with the remaining being the other types of roads we discussed in the excluded from inventory categories. And so each of those 6,600 roads were polygons that were identified, and a buffer was created around those, also known as a geofence. And within each of those buffer zones, waypoints were collected and averaged within each buffer. So the key data collected from this evaluation was mean speed, median speed, max speed, and the total number of waypoints identified within each buffer zone. Out of the 6,615, unpaved road polygon/segments in that region, speed measurements were obtained for 4,640 polygons, which is about 70% of them, which is considered a high success rate. The figure below is just a representation of the data collected in the summary. The table identifies unique identifiers such as shape length, shape area, geometry. We also have the direction that the vehicle was headed in, and then those other items I mentioned before, such as mean, median, and max speed. Now, this slide is to give you a little bit better visual representation of what I mean by the segments and the geofencing. So to the left, this is the 6,600 roughly segments that were identified, placed on a map. And then the figure to the right is what a geofence/buffer may look like. So each of those green segments represents one buffer. And then within each of those buffers, waypoints were identified and analyzed to create an average. This is another slide just depicting the data. Now this is for median speeds, whereas we were evaluating mean speeds, but this just gives you another idea of what that speed evaluation looked like. Down at the bottom right is a color scale where the speeds are separated from slowest to fastest, purple being the slowest and yellow being the fastest. It's a little bit tricky to see here as well, but the majority of the colors are lying in that orange to closing in on that yellow category. So slowest was 0 to 6, and the highest category was 16 to 77. Now for the results of the mean speeds, we identified that the unpaved public road mean speed was 14.96 miles per hour, and the unpaved private road mean speed was 11.10 miles per hour. Down below is multiple figures, one representing the mean speed distribution, the median speed distribution, and then the max speed distribution. The minimum speed collected throughout this analysis was 0.5 miles per hour, with the maximum speed being collected at around 50 miles per hour. The smaller speeds were likely due to vehicles slowing down at intersections, stop signs, or potentially moving into their own driveways. Now moving into the next steps. So first we'll begin with sending out the maps to member agencies for them to review and confirm for accuracy and to let us know if there's any type of revisions that need to be made. The second step will be once we've received those responses, the entirety of the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment baseline will be complete. And we'll be doing a new baseline approximately every 5 years with periodic updates to member agencies to ensure that we're keeping as up-to-date of an inventory as possible. And then the final step is we're going to be evaluating options for obtaining new average daily traffic data for the public and private unpaved roads. And the reason we're not using the CBD data is because the waypoints, again, they're collected every 3 seconds, making it difficult to distinguish vehicles, whereas we were able to use it for the mean speed data. Now, in order to obtain the most accurate inventory possible, we are looking for engagement from each of the member agencies that represent a jurisdiction within the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. So we'll be sending out a resource package via email in the next few days containing the following material. We'll include instructional guidance and then an interactive map with comment functionality. It'll be filterable by jurisdiction and searchable by road. And then the second item will be a fillable PDF with pre-selected dropdowns, making it easy to use. Both will be usable to document new roads that have been added, removed, stabilized, or if there's just any revisions to the maps that are needed. And the map can also just be used as a visual resource in accompaniment to the PDF form. So whichever works best for you, please use that. And as just a reminder, our current contact sheet for who this email will be sent to has a combination of air quality and/or transportation department contacts, with some jurisdictions only having transportation contacts listed. So if you are the new point of contact for these updates, please contact me via email and I will update our contact sheet accordingly. With that, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Do any members have questions or comments? Comparison of the change in mobile source emissions and ozone concentrations from alternative summer gasoline fuel blends. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Matt Poppin, Maricopa Association of Governments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee. Happy to go through this exercise that we did to evaluate alternative summer gasoline blends and their impact on air quality in our region. So just as some background, MAG received a request from Representative Julie Willoughby of the Arizona House of Representatives to model the impacts of 3 alternative summer season gasoline blends. And these are all based on reed vapor pressure. So the first one was a summer gasoline with a 7.4 reed vapor pressure, second is 7.8, and the third is 9.0. Just as some background, currently within Maricopa County and also Area A and Area C, which is in Pinal County, summer gasoline is required to have a 7.0 RVP per state statutes. Lower RVP values reduce the volatility of gasoline, which decreases the amount of VOC emissions that can occur from evaporation. So the lower the RVP, the less volatile gasoline is. Here are just some basics on gasoline formulations. I'm not an expert in this area, but here's some very basic descriptions of our program. You'll hear often that within Maricopa County, we have what's known as a boutique gasoline. And that's true. We are the only area in the country with our specific requirements to make the type of gasoline that we have in the summer. And because of that, the regulatory term is known as a boutique fuel approved by EPA for our area. Summer gasoline with a 7.4 RVP limit, which was one of the options considered to be evaluated, is generally referred to as federal reformulated gasoline. This is EPA's lower gasoline blend, and that's generally available to areas that opt into it. So areas that want to help with their air quality issues can opt into the federal RVP program, federal reformulated gasoline program, and with that is usually a summer limit of 7.4 RVP. There are other areas of the country that are subject to just a federal limit, an RVP limit. So this is different from reformulated gasoline. This is just related to an RVP limit. So it doesn't necessarily have to be reformulated gasoline first. It could be any type of gasoline as long as it's 7.8 RVP. There's a scattering of areas across the West that still have that still participate in this program, but a lot of areas have opted out since then. And then lastly, the summer gasoline with a 9.0 is generally what folks refer to as conventional gasoline. So this is the gasoline that's most widely used in other areas of the country, like in Flagstaff or other areas of Arizona that don't have air quality issues. So this is what's the most widely available gasoline. So the theory behind evaluating these formulas is that the use of these more widely available summer fuels could help with the complex supply issues that often occur here in Arizona. I will mention that it's not just the type of fuel that has issues with our supply. We have folks on our committee that are very Caesar from Arizona Weights and Measures can dive into all of the issues that are associated with supply. But this is really just addressing one idea that if you could access alternative fuels in the summer, it might help with supply issues that could occur. All right, so what are the parameters we use to kind of evaluate these three fuel blends? First, we were just looking at mobile source emissions again, obviously, from vehicles, and we're looking at three pollutants: carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and volatile organic compounds. These are the three that contribute to ozone formation. And again, we're only looking at the summer fuel formulations, not the winter ones. Both the emissions impact and the ozone impact was just strictly limited to the Maricopa County ozone non-attainment area, and it was evaluated for the year 2023. We kept our baseline the same as the regulatory requirements here, that's 7.0 RVP, and it's consistent with the modeling we did most recently for our demonstration of international impacts on ozone. So we had that model ready to go, so we wanted to leverage that for this analysis. On-road mobile, which are cars and trucks, and then non-road mobile, which are construction equipment, lawn and garden equipment, industrial equipment, forklifts, those types of things, agricultural equipment. All of the emissions from those are generated using EPA's MOVES 4 model. We use the MOVES 4 model again because that's what was used when we did the demonstration submitted to EPA in 2025. We used EPA MOVES 4 default fuel parameters that exist for Maricopa County. So if you open up the model and open up the fuel table, you'll see EPA has already populated fuel parameters for our county. We use those. The only thing we changed was we would update the RVP values to evaluate those for each of the fuel formulations. And then lastly, for determining the impact on ozone, we have two photochemical models, CAMEX and CMAQ, and so we wanted to see if there were any differences between those two models. So here's, I'll be showing a series of summary tables that shows you the emission impacts. We did it for the 4 summer months when RVP limits are in effect, June, July, and August. So you can see the first column is impact on carbon monoxide emissions. In the middle are nitrogen oxides, and then the far right are volatile organic compounds. So going from the current fuel to 7.4 has a pretty minor change on emissions, generally less than 1% of overall on-road and non-road emissions. When we switch to a 7.8 blend, emissions do increase as expected, still pretty moderate, with the biggest increase seen in VOC of about 3.3 tons per day for about almost 6% increase. And then lastly, going to conventional gasoline, The biggest impact, again, is on volatile organic compounds for about 6.5 tons per day for over 11% increase in emissions of on-road and non-road emissions. So here's a summary looking at the average change for those tables. You can see the absolute change for each of the pollutants as well as the percent change. And again, I think what's most important is the VOC emissions, as those are the ones that change the most significantly out of the pollutants studied. On average, switching to the summer gasoline does increase mobile source emissions for all three pollutants, but again, VOC is the largest. When comparing the emissions impact with the entire emissions inventory, so this above comparison, percentage comparison is just for the mobile sources, the percentage changes are smaller yet. So for example, for the 9.0 RVP, it increases VOC emissions only by 0.9% for the entire, when you're looking at the entire emissions inventory for the non-attainment area. That includes point sources, area sources, gas stations, dry cleaners, paint usage, as well as biogenic sources as well. Moving on to the ozone impact. So that was the emissions change. What we really want to know is what's the impact on ozone concentrations. So this table lists the 24 monitoring stations that we have in Maricopa County, in the non-attainment area, which includes portions of Gila County and Pinal County. The DVB column is what's known as the ozone design value in 2023. So that's what the ozone concentration is according to EPA's regulatory formula. And you can see our maximum design value is 80 parts per billion, so 10 parts per billion over the standard. And then the DVA is what we're calling design value alternative. So this is what the ozone concentration would be if you switched to those new gasoline formulations. So you can see the ozone impact is very minor. According to our CAMX model, it actually doesn't impact ozone at all. When you switch to the 7.4 RVP, we're still at 80 parts per billion. When you go to the more conventional fuel of 9.0 RVP, that's where you see the biggest impact, with the largest impact being a 0.05 part per billion, which is still very negligible overall. That occurred at the Falcon Field monitor. And then the monitor that has the highest concentration, the JLG SuperSite monitor, would increase by 0.04 parts per billion. That's the CAMX model. Very similar results when we look at CMAQ model. These are a little bit higher, but very much what we would consider noise. So they're pretty much giving us the same results. But you can see, for example, if you look at the 9.0 RVP values, the maximum impact is now 0.06 parts per billion for the Falcon Field monitor. There are a couple sites that do show some impact when you switch to the 7.4. 3 sites have a 0.01 part per billion impact. But again, these results are very comparable to each other. So in summary, very negligible increases in ozone from switching to these alternative fuel blends in the summer, with the biggest impact coming from the 9.0 RVP value. One other thing we wanted to model was, this is the change in the design value. So this is EPA's regulatory value, but we also wanted to see what would happen on every single day. And so when we did that, we found that on every single day that we modeled, the maximum impact would be 0.18 part per billion for the largest fuel formulation of 9.0 RVP. So that means the maximum daily increase in ozone under any day, whether it be a low ozone day or a high ozone day, would be no larger than 0.18 part per billion. So that's the summary of the evaluation we did. Happy to take any comments or questions that the committee might have.
Thank you, Matt. Do any members have questions or comments?
I would add too that in your agenda packet was the report summary of this. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in a little bit more of the details as well.
Intermountain West 2026 Ozone Exchange Conference. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Matt Poppin, Maricopa Association of Governments.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is really just an educational item that I wanted to make, or an informational item that I wanted to make the committee aware of. One of the things that we have been talking about frequently here in our committee is the work that's being done by the GLORE study that MAG helps support, run by ASU and U of A, the ground level ozone research study that was done last summer and the research that's coming out of that. In addition to that, MAG has been really involved with our Intermountain West partners. So our partners in Salt Lake City, in Las Vegas, Nevada, and in Denver, Colorado, to understand what's happening to ozone in those areas as well. So as part of that scientific exchange, this is still in the development stage, but it's coming together. This is being sponsored by our sister agencies up in Colorado, North Front Range, MPO, and Pikes Peak Council of Governments, MPO. They're bringing together, which I think it's going to be either a 2 or a 3-day conference to talk about the science of ozone formation in the Intermountain West. So there'll be folks there from all over the Intermountain West explaining the insights they're learning and how ozone is being formed. This will be a group of academics, universities, air agencies, environmental groups, and industrial groups. Everybody is encouraged to come and attend and help us understand better what's happening. So I'm just kind of making this aware as more information comes together, access that website for more information as the agenda starts to come together. It's looking like October is when this will be held, but this is just another way for us to, again, continue to advance our understanding of ozone. While we have some certainty with our international emissions demonstration from EPA, we still want to understand better the ways that we can impact local emissions that are under our control, and hopefully some of the information from this conference will help with that as well. And so that's all I have on this item as well.
Thank you, Matt. Do any members have questions or comments? Are there any requests from the membership for an item on a future agenda? The next meeting of the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee will be on Thursday, May 28th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. with no